Hello! I have a box of stuff that I need to decide what to film first. I am still nowhere near a decision because all of you gave me some amazing comments and people have voted for so many different things out of here, so I'm still like, wow, which one do I pick? And I think I'm just going to have to do this systematically. In case you're wondering what this book is, I actually covered that Fabriano journal because it was starting to scuff immediately, and I figured I might as well just make a pretty paper cover for it using up some of my scrapbook supplies. So I'm actually using up some of my things this year, hooray! And I've even drawn a little bit in here. So I've been sketching on my off time. I haven't done a lot yet, but I've just been drawing a few bits and pieces. So I have been using this paper. I will get back to this book eventually. I really want to use an actual art supply today, and after careful consideration, I am going to pick the Derwent Procolours. So let's get that out and check it out. So really my scientific process was to pick the largest thing in the box, which is the Derwent Procolour set. And also another reason to do that is, if you remember, I have a Joanna Basford 22 colouring calendar, and I would really like to colour in the picture for January, which is this one. This one definitely lends itself to coloured pencils and not paints, so that's another reason for choosing it. I will be colouring this in later in the video to actually see how the pencils will work, but firstly I'm going to swatch them and show you the pencils, so we'll be doing that. It has been killing me to not open all of the things I have and just swatch everything in one hit. I did consider it, but the savvy YouTuber in me says it is much better to have 10 separate videos than one video with everything all together, so I hope you don't mind, but I will get to these things eventually. But today, let's take a look at the set of Derwent Procolour pencils. This is the 72 set, which I think is the largest set you can get of these. They say they're professional quality, strong, smooth, clean coloured pencils. Now, I have heard a lot of mixed reviews over these. There are lots of people who really hate these with a passion because they say they're too hard, and then I've got a few other people who say they really love them. So I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm just going to have to find out for myself. You can see I have not opened them yet, they are still wrapped. I'll just get my scissors and slice off all of this plastic so we can get rid of this reflection. And now for the freshly opened tin of coloured pencils smell test. Oh yeah, those smell good. It's that lovely wood smell that you get off pencils. Oh, it's such a pleasurable smell. So we've got 2 trays here. It's standard like any other set of Derwent 72 pencils that I've ever tried. Looks like a pretty decent colour palette. There's a lot of greens and earths by the looks of things. It looks pretty much the same as other palettes of pencils that I've seen by Derwent. I'm just going to focus on the Derwent Procolours today, but I think I will be doing a comparison video further down the track, at least with the colour softs, and maybe a few other sets of pencils. This one's the sharpest looking one, so I've picked that out. So it's got the standard Derwent wave on it. It's got the name of the colour here, which is Geranium Lake, and the number, Derwent Procolour, made in Britain, and that does not want to come and focus at all, does it? There we go. It's got a thick core, I'd say a 4mm maybe, and I am guessing it's probably not going to fit in my small hole sharpeners, so I'll probably have to use the larger hole on my electric sharpener to sharpen them. They have been pre-sharpened, but they are still a little blunt. I guess it's time to swatch all these colours out and see what they look like. And to do that, I have my trusty swatching book, the big book of colour charts. I swear this book has paid for itself many times over. Just having all of my pencils swatched in one book is so handy rather than having swatch sheets everywhere, because I've done that before and I always lose them and it's such a nuisance. So this is so much better. The paper's a bit average, but you get the idea. It's just a swatch, and it gives you an idea of what the colours look like. So Derwent's usually up the front, being that it's in alphabetical order. Yeah, here we go. Derwent Procolours. There's an area up here, I'm guessing, that you can write notes and maybe just do some little scribbles and things. Here is the colour chart. I really hope that these pencils are in the same order as the book. They usually are. I have had no time to put these out of order, which is what I normally do. I had a quick look and they are most definitely numbered 1 to 72, which is fantastic. Quite a lot of the other sets of Derwent pencils are just randomly numbered, and so it's really hard to keep them in any kind of order. These ones are actually numbered numerically and in colour order, so I'm very happy about that. When I say colour order, I mean Derwent's version of their colour order. There are definitely ones that I would personally switch around, such as these 5 up the top here. You can see the primrose yellow and the champagne much lighter than the lime and the buttercup yellow, so I would put primrose and champagne at the top as the first 2 and then go in with lime, buttercup yellow and then gold, because it would make a more pleasing colour spectrum for me. But nitpicking aside, let's get into looking at some of the colours. Now, I don't know if you could see it on here, but they are not coming up as brightly as other pencils that I've swatched. And that's mostly due to the Procolour pencils being very hard. And I'm swatching on a thick book with a very smooth paper, so the combination of hard pencils against smooth paper is never a very good one. But you can see that the reds are starting to get a bit more vibrant, and what I do like about this set, barring the funny colour order, is that there is a nice range of lights to darks in all of the colour groupings. And I also really love the pinks that are in the Procolour set. That cerise pink, number 20, is such a great and bright colour. I really like it. But as I'm sure you can imagine, that one is not light fast at all. In fact, rose pink, cerise and magenta are all classed as number 1, which on the blue wool scale is the worst for light fastness, with number 8 being the highest light fastness. And I'm having a look at Derwent's information chart, and the light fast ratings for this set of pencils is just all over the place. There are 5 pencils that are considered not light fast at number 1, including those 3 pinks, Blue Violet Lake at number 28, which is what I'm colouring now, and Sky Blue, which I think is number 38. So that's pretty bad for a set of pencils that are considered to be professional level, and I know a lot of people have griped about this. I'm pretty sure this is directly why Derwent actually created the light fast set of pencils, and all of those ones are actually considered light fast, but I'm afraid the Procolour ones have a mishmash of ones which are number 8s, and then there's 7s and 3s and 1s, and so if you're wanting to buy some of these and you're really concerned about the light fastness of them, you might want to buy individual pencils and go through the chart, which I will link in the description below, to see which ones are considered light fast and just use those ones. So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer, and I know a few other artists reviewed these years ago when these came out and were disappointed by that. But for the most part, as long as you're not going to hang your pictures in the sunlight, these pencils probably aren't going to fade that quickly, and I wouldn't be too worried about it. I mean, if you're going to use them in colouring books or sketchbooks, then there's not going to be an issue there. It's just more if you are a professional artist who wants to sell your artwork, that does need to be taken into consideration. So in my experience here, most of the pencils were quite smooth, but I had a couple of issues with a few of them. In particular, number 23, Heather, was quite scratchy, and you can almost see it a little bit on the swatch itself. It got better once I'd actually sharpened the pencil a bit more and taken off the outer layer, I guess, of the pencil, but yeah, it's a little bit disappointing on that one. And I found a couple of the brown ones, like the sepia, I think, and there was another one, I can't remember which it is. They were also a little bit scratchy too, which is a shame, and that is to do with them being really hard, and yeah, it's just kind of annoying. To compare with another set of pencils that is also hard, although not as hard as these ones, the Polychromos by Faber-Castell are excellent, and they are so much smoother than these pencils. But I do like the colour palette in the Derwent Procolours, especially the blues and the greens. These had a far bigger range of shades than, for example, the Coloursoft, which tended towards the pinks and the purples. And the other thing which I really like about this set of pencils is that they are so easy to sharpen. They actually did fit into my electric sharpener. and I was able to get some nice sharp points, which you'll see a bit later when I'm colouring, and they don't break, so I give them full marks on that. Super easy to sharpen, that's always a winner in my book. And here they all are. Oh yes, these pencils are really firm, and they were quite a struggle to lay the colours down on this super smooth paper. I've also got quite a lot of give in the paper because it's on a thick pad, so that didn't help either. I do like the colour palette, I think it's really nice. I especially love that sunset gold, the turquoise green and the cerise pink. That's a gorgeous colour. I don't imagine that's going to be very light fast, but overall it's really well balanced in its spectrum and there's not too many of one colour over another colour. So first impressions are they're very hard, but they do have a nice range of colours. I have a feeling these might work quite well on something like Pastelmat, so this is something I will need to test as well. But first things first, I'm going to colour in that January picture because it's staring at me accusingly and it's already the first week of January, so I need to get that done. Now this paper, it's still smooth, but it's a much thicker, sturdier, almost cardstock, so I'm hoping the pencils will perform a little bit better on here. The Procolour pencils were better on this paper, and I'd also actually sharpened them properly, so they do function better when they have a nice sharp point. But I did find that they still struggled on this paper, and particularly the brown pencils just did not seem to be able to get really dark or vibrant. Some of the other colours, which we'll see in a bit, were extremely vibrant on this paper, but the browns were just a little bit dull and not quite as punchy as brown pencils from a few other brands that I've tried. I found I had no issues layering the pencils on top of each other or getting them to blend together. On the tree trunk here, I'm actually using 3 shades of brown, going from a dark, a medium, and down to a light yellowy ochre colour. Of course, I never think to actually write the names of the colours of the pencils that I use in my drawing, so I do apologise for that. I really couldn't tell you which pencils I used for this entire drawing. But my rule of thumb is, as long as you use a light, a medium and a dark in the same colour palette, you can't really go wrong. So I picked some of the brighter colours in the set for the house on top, and starting with the red for the accents, and then I've gone in with a few different colours. I wasn't really thinking about it, I was just trying to use as many colours as I could, and it was a bit of a mess by the end, but I enjoyed using the purples especially. They really blended well together and layered on top of each other nicely. So of all of the colours that I used, the purples were definitely the most saturated and brightest in this colouring in piece. As well as sharpening nicely, these Procolour pencils hold their points for quite a long time, significantly longer than softer lead pencils that I've tried, and I think it is the Procolour pencil's greatest strength is to be able to keep that point, and so they'd be really great for detailed work such as animal fur or small areas. But I do think that they are more suitable to a toothier paper or one that's got a bit more texture, because on the smooth paper like this, they tend to just glide across it and not really stick to the paper, if that makes sense. Derwent Procolour pencils are waxed based, and I did notice it after a while, and the page got quite waxy because even though I'm wearing a protective glove to stop the oils from my hand touching the paper, I didn't think that of course I'm still touching the waxy pencil that's still on there, and it was rubbing across the paper, making other areas more difficult to colour in because they'd already had this thin layer of wax on it. That's what it felt like to me. I could really feel this waxy texture on this paper after a while. So I would recommend resting your hand on a piece of paper or glassine when using these pencils. Otherwise, I didn't really notice any wax blooming when layering the pencils up, so that's a good thing. It was also really hot and humid when I was colouring this, and so I got a bit tired, and this particular illustration has a lot of leafy details, so I started getting very lazy when it came to shading, and the background leaves are not that great. I just went in with single colours pretty much. I also spent some time colouring the fox and the cat. You'll see that the cat turns into my cat, Gandalf. It's mostly coloured. I keep looking and seeing parts that I haven't done, but I'm just finished for now. It is really hot. It's become humid, like we've got stormy weather and there's no breeze, and I just don't really want to run the air conditioning all the time, but it's very sticky. So it's very hard to stay focused on anything right now. But it's coloured enough, I think, that we can see how these pencils have worked. And around here it's quite bright, especially the purples. I liked the purples in this set, but the browns were a bit dull and I found those harder to get a lot of vibrancy out of these. You can see it also in the background on the leaves. A lot of the greens are quite dull, and it was like the paper was getting really waxy or something, so it was harder to lay the colours down, especially in smaller areas like this. It was just very difficult to build up the layers. So I found these pencils far more difficult to use than softer coloured pencils, that's for sure, especially on smooth paper. Smooth paper just does not like these pencils very much at all. So I think I'm just going to try one other thing. So I've cut up a bit of Pastelmat here. It's Clairefontaine Pastelmat and it's got a very light sandpapery surface, so it's much rougher than any of the other smooth paper I've tried. I figured I might just do a little drawing on here. I've sketched out a couple of tulip flowers, so I'm just going to see how these pencils work on a grippier surface to see if that makes a difference. It certainly made a difference, and this surface was so much better for these pencils. It also gave me a chance to use the white, because it really stood out on this darker plum coloured paper. I love this paper. I think I'm going to have to get some more of it. I do have a few sheets which I bought ages ago to try in a few different colours. I love the redness of this particular colour, so I think I'll have to find more of it. But I went in with the purples and pinks because they were currently my favourite pencils in the set, and still are really, even though that cerise is heartbreakingly not light fast. This flower is a little matchy-matchy with the background, but I did pick a different colour combination for the other flower, and I've also gone in with the greens for the stems of these, so we do get to see some contrasting colours on here. I also used some odourless mineral spirits here to see how well the pencils would blend, but I only had a tiny amount on the brush. It just absorbed straight into that paper. You can see how saturated the paper becomes, and that seems to happen on Pastelmat really quickly. So it does dry, and I went over everything with a second layer, but when you first lay it down, it's like all of the pencil you put onto the Pastelmat just disappears immediately. So I'm using oranges and yellows here, which you can see also go really nicely with that plum background, and it just gives everything a really warm feel to it. And there goes the pencil, especially the yellow, once that mineral spirits was added, but it does come back once it dries. And then I'm using a really highly contrasting colour grouping here with the greens on the red, but they also worked well, and especially the lighter colours are very opaque, so that's a great thing. You can layer up on top of toned paper and it will disappear underneath those layers eventually. So I had fun with this drawing. I really enjoyed using the Procolour pencils on here. Even though this is smooth Pastelmat, it still has that sandpapery finish and it will chew through pencils very quickly. The Procolours held up longer than softer pencils I've tried, which will pretty much go blunt immediately. So finally I have found a use for Procolour pencils on smooth Pastelmat paper. Here we are, all done. I could have done more layers on this, I think. It just keeps going. But I do prefer the pencils on this rougher surface for sure. I mean, they work well enough on a smooth paper as well, so you can use them in colouring books, but I think they do perform at their best on a rougher surface. They may work quite well on any toned paper. I'll have to test that out eventually as well. So what do I think of the pencils? I like them well enough. I don't hate them, as a lot of people have expressed their opinion already. I would say they're not going to be my favourite coloured pencils by Derwent. That is definitely reserved for the Lightfast pencils, which are just so amazing. But I don't dislike these. I think they just have a certain niche, if you will, that they work well on surfaces that take a bit more texture. Also, they sharpen really well, and that is a huge bonus in their favour, because you probably know that I hate sharpening pencils, and I like that these don't break easily. In that respect, they are excellent, but they do have their limitations when it comes to spreading the colour. They blend well though, and I didn't have trouble with blending or layering. So there's good points and bad points. I think it just comes down to preference as to whether you prefer a firmer pencil or not. Usually I do, although I do have a soft spot for soft pencils, I just really hate sharpening them. So that's all I have today on this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Procolour pencils. Do you love them or do you hate them? And would you consider buying them after seeing this review? Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps out my channel, and click that subscribe button if you want to see more of my review videos. I have plenty more art supplies to look at in this coming year. So I hope you're all having a fabulous day out there, and I will see you really soon in my next video. Swatch you later. Bye!